Hello and welcome to the Handcrafted Garden. I'm Carol, and today I'm in one of my flower beds considering the flowers that are growing alongside the weeds that are growing and some baby flowers that are coming up. And so I just wanted to take a minute to tell you what's happening here. So I have coneflowers in the background. This coneflower is the Echinacea, the most popular coneflower, the most hardy coneflower. It's actually a native coneflower here in Texas. And there are many, many hybrids of this coneflower with all different varieties of reds and yellows and whites. And they're gorgeous. They're not always hardy year round. And in my garden, because this is a certified wildlife habitat, I want my plants to be hardy. I want them to come back year after year, and I don't want to have to worry about them too much. So I have the purple Echinacea, but I also have right here is a giant coneflower. And this is something that you won't see very often. It's a flower that I actually propagated in the Shandor Garden greenhouse one year. And if you don't know what Shandor Garden is, you should look it up. It's Chandor. It's a beautiful little shade garden here in Texas, a world-class garden. And so I propagated the giant coneflower, and maybe I'll consider giving away seeds at some point, but we'll come back to that. The coneflower is one of my favorites because it is great for the pollinators. The bees love coneflower. And one of the reasons they love it is because of the way it is growing. It's the shape of the plant as much as it is the pollen on the plant. Bees like to have a landing pad. And what they do is they come in and land on the petals and then crawl on up to the yellow center to get the pollen and to pollinate the flowers. The coneflower is a perennial. It comes back year after year, but it also produces seeds out of the center of this flower. And the seeds fall on the ground, or the birds eat the seeds more likely. But there's a few that fall to the ground and actually come back year after year. And I want to dig some of those babies up and move them to another part of my garden. So that's what I'm doing today. And while I'm here, I'm also pulling up weeds. And this is the most common weed in this particular garden. This is crabgrass. It's the one we hear about all the time. It spreads through runners. This little runner right here will lay down on the ground and actually grow roots and spread farther through these little runners. And they spread through the roots, but they also spread through seeds. If I leave it here long enough for it to bloom, it spreads through the seeds. Now, I have a really unique perspective on weeds. Many of the weeds that grow in my yard are actually beneficial to the wildlife that lives in our yard. So I am not diligent about removing the weeds because of that very fact. I'm attracting wildlife too. So if it's a garden that I'm looking at a lot and I want it to be prettier, I'll get some weeds out of the way. But for the most part, when I see weeds in my garden, I don't really worry too much about them. If they're easy to remove, I do. And if they're not, I leave them there because the birds are going to be here in a few weeks when they produce seeds, and they're going to be feeding off the seeds of these weeds. But as I'm looking at my weed situation, I'm also looking for baby coneflowers. If you look on the ground here, here are the babies coming up. And these are just from seeds that have dropped to the ground. And if I leave them here, next year I'm going to have even a much more full patch of coneflowers, which would be gorgeous. But I'm working on another flower bed and I need some coneflowers, so I'm going to dig these up rather than running down to the store to buy some more. And so to dig up a coneflower, you want to get as much of the root as possible. So I'm getting my spade in pretty deep. And I hear lots of roots snapping. It's not necessarily the root of this baby that's snapping, but more likely the root of this cosmos or the other coneflowers that are snapping. So here's the plant, and here's the nice root ball going along with it, and I'm going to put it in my pot. I've already got the soil in the pot. It's compost that I use with all of my plants. that I produce right here in my own garden. And I have to dump some soil out. When you're transplanting, you want to be very careful not to break the stems down at the base of the plant. The stems are flush, they're crisp, and if you bend them just a little bit, they're going to snap. And you want to be careful not to do that. You also want to be careful how deep you put it into the pot. You don't want to bury it deeper than it was in the soil to begin with, but you also don't want to leave it too tall up out of the soil. There's a crown at the top of that root, and you want to have that crown right at the surface of the soil. And you don't want to pack the soil really hard around these fresh baby roots. The best way to pack the soil is to actually tap it from the bottom so that it settles around the roots of the plant. And so it suddenly looks droopy, and that's okay. I'm going to try to press the soil just a little bit on the side where it's drooping, and that holds it up a little bit better. But it's going to droop for a little while because I just dug it up. I just interrupted the cycle in this plant, and it's going to have to reestablish some of those roots so that it can continue to feed itself. So anytime you're transplanting, anytime you're digging something up to move it somewhere else, you get it settled in your pot and you take it to the shade. You put it in the shade and you keep it moist until you see that it has recovered. There's no more drooping, it's suddenly standing up straight. Come check on it at noon when it's really hot and make sure the heat hasn't caused it to droop. Once it settles and once it establishes, it's going to stand up and it's going to grow just fine. So just for the sake of doing it again, because repetition is a good thing, I'm going to pick up one more here. You'll notice the shape on this one's a little bit different. The leaves are wider and the stems are shorter, and the leaves are actually a little bit different shape. You can see that they're not actually pointed at the end, and this is a happy surprise. It's possible that this could be a different plant growing from a seed, not of my coneflower. I have surprises in my garden all the time, and I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to put it in a pot right next to my coneflowers, and I'm going to wait to see when it blooms what it looks like, because the bloom always tells the story of what the plant is. If you're ever wondering what it is and you can't identify it, let it bloom, and then you'll be certain. So just in a matter of a few minutes, I have 6 baby coneflowers ready to head to the shade, and I'll have them in the shade for probably a couple of weeks, keeping them moist, making sure they're going to get established. And once they are going to my friend's house. I have a friend who has an area in her yard where the rainwater drains through and it stays wet most of the time. Sometimes it'll dry out, but most of the time it's kind of damp and marshy. And coneflower is one of those very versatile plants. They can grow when it's dry, they can grow when it's wet, and they are very adaptable to different soils. So they call it a rain garden when you have a marshy area like that that's affected by the rains that flow through into the soil. And so these are going to go to her rain garden. And while I've been here digging, I have noticed that this funny plant that looked a little bit different, I have lyre leaf sage in my garden, and this is more than likely a lyre leaf sage. So sometimes if you sit and think about it for a while, you'll remember those things. If you're like me and you're getting a little bit older and you have trouble calling those things to mind when you want to, well, I think I've identified that one for you. So if you've learned something today, consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you next time on the Handcrafted Garden.